Okay. So now I have been asked by Francois to just reflect on the two papers which have some critical insights on the agroecology. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So these two papers, one is 2022 and another is 2024. I'm just talking of the first 2022 paper. This paper is on impact of large-scale government legislated and funded organic farming on pesticides used in AP, a cross-sectional study 2022. So some of the critical insights that they have given are pesticide use remains high among APCNF farmers. 49% of the farmers reported using pesticides, and complete elimination in 2 years is unrealistic. This is one point. The flow that I would like to share with you is that some critical insights followed by some positive points brought out by the paper. Then the second paper, also the critical insights, and then reflections from the APCNF where I am working. And it's not necessarily whatever I'm saying now, it represents APCNF's official opinion. But after reading and having been working with both APCNF and APAARI, my reflections are also kept. That's the sequence. So the first paper, they say the pesticide use is almost still 49% use it, and 2 years elimination may not be possible. And no significant effect in retail sales by actually telephonic interviews they have done with the pesticide dealers. And there is a limited impact on conventional farmers. A significant of farmers who initially adopted dropped out, limited influence on conventional farmers. This is another thing. Then lack of engagement with the pesticide retailers, missing an opportunity to influence them in the supply chain. Then challenges in the adoption and knowledge transfer. This is another extension work they are telling. Farmers' perception is limited. Then pest management challenges due to, of course, not only for the pesticide use, but also climate change and other factors. The pests have increased. So pest management also has become more important than before. And these are some of the things. Of course, they admitted that the statistical limitations are there and the scope of study is restricted to only one district in Andhra Pradesh, which may not represent entire data, and data was self-reported. These are the limitations also that the paper has pointed out. Some of the good points shared in this paper is reduction in pesticide use, that is APCNF farmers were 35% less likely to use pesticides compared to conventional farmers. So that means they are acknowledging that there is a reduction in pesticide use, but that's not completely eliminated. And the second point is lower pesticide expenditure by APCNF farmers. That is, median pesticide expenditure was $0 for APCNF farmers compared to $175 for conventional farmers. This is an excellent point that they made, that the input cost has significantly come down because of not use of the pesticides. The positive impact of extension services who frequently interacted with CRPs, community resource persons, used less pesticides. And APCNF farmers more likely to reduce pesticide use over time. It's a gradual shift towards pesticide-free agriculture. Potential for large-scale organic farming demonstrated potential to reduce pesticide use at a scale, making it a significant model for other states and countries. And long-term adoption requires a policy support. These are some of the positive points that they mentioned in the paper, which are good. And then I will discuss my viewpoint after also presenting the critical insights from the second paper. The second paper says, access to natural ecosystems, land, water, and seeds is an important domain for ecological transition. But we are not talking about the land rights, water sharing, seeds access. That's one of the criticism. These are the 6 criteria which they have used it to assess the APCNF. One is access to the land. Then second is, of course, land, water, and seeds. And second is system of economic exchange and markets. And third is knowledge and culture. Fourth is social networks and local organizations, discourses, equity, gender, and diversity. Of course, equity is the issue which they have highlighted in the paper. And this paper does not rely on the primary quantitative surveys, but rather on the document analysis, desk study. And it is a policy critic, field insights from the decades of engagement and lived experiences they say they have considered. So these are the critical insights from the second paper. So both these put together, now I would like to give responses to some of them, which we can discuss. One is extreme land inequality benefits dominant caste while marginalizing Dalit and Adivasi farmers. Of course, this is another criticism that has come. But my response is that's not the domain of this APCNF. Land rights and Adivasi rights, Dalits rights, this is a different movement compared to the transformation of agri-food system. These two are different. The second is farmers tied to corporate controlled global value chains, which I disagree, which I will tell you a little later more. Then agroecological knowledge is top-down and hierarchical, elevates cow-based inputs, favoring elite control system. All three I disagree. It's definitely not top-down hierarchical. We come from bottom-up approach is our process. Then cow-based inputs, yes, that was true in the beginning when it was zero budget natural farming. But now we have enough evidence to say that it need not be an indigenous cow inputs alone. There are many other options on which we have done some research, and we do not advocate that only cow-based, that too indigenous cow-based input should be used. No, we do not indicate at all that kind of point in the APCNF. And APCNF is a flexible program, research-based for enhancing the value of the agri-food system. Then elite control systems, favoring elite control system is not at all correct, because 70 to 80% of farm holdings in Andhra Pradesh, they not only in Andhra Pradesh, in India, is actually less than 2 hectares. So our APCNF farmers are small and marginal farmers. We are not at all focusing on huge or big farmers. Then women's SSGs are used to integrate farmers into global financial markets. This is also unfounded conclusion. And women SSGs are very active locally and livelihoods, and therefore nutrition and health, not for any global markets or exports, or so far never happened. And it's not a right conclusion from the paper. The model is a case of greenwashing that sustains capitalist and colonial structures rather than transforming them. So this is also unfounded, and we have a great representation of different social groups which are disadvantaged in the APCNF. Almost 1 million farmers are registered, and not even 0.1% are big farmers. All of them are small and marginal farmers, and they are not linked to any corporate experiments. And then the program disproportionately benefits landowning castes, labor-intensive tasks. This is also another point which is not founded well, because we also have provision for landless laborers. Separate technologies are also being developed, like anytime money model, which requires just 1/5 of an acre, and that gives supposed to targeting an income of 10,000 rupees per month, which is sufficient enough for living expenses initially to start with. So this is for landless laborers around their home in a small land. They can take up this technology and move ahead. And we are also providing land for research for the landless laborers also, in the academy research farm. So these some of the criticism that has come is not really founded on the facts. This was perceptions mostly, not actually on the facts or figures. And they also did not do any systematic survey, or they are not made their statements based on any data. So, and if you see, this program started in 2016, and which is very recent. So, in a matter of by the time we reach 23 and 24, 1.2 million farmers registered. That definitely does not mean all of them are doing natural farming. See, the approach has been different, that these farmers experiment in a small area within their farm, and then they will convert slowly. Some of them may get dropped also. So it doesn't matter, that is their choice. Neither we are giving any incentive to the farmers to remain in natural farming, no cash incentive, no direct benefit transfer. It is completely optional and based on their perception, research from their own farm. So growing from almost 40,000 farmers in 2016-17 to 1.2 million farmers is a huge change. And if you try to see what has happened in the Green Revolution also in India, if you see, even after 5 to 6 decades of Green Revolution happened, still 50% of the farmers use their own seed. They don't buy seeds from the market. And there is a large number of farmers do not have access to fertilizers and pesticides. Neither in most of the tribal zones, they don't use the pesticides and fertilizers. So if it takes 50 to 60 years for the Green Revolution to spread, what is the expectation that natural farming should spread in the 4 years' time? Whether this paper in 22 is actually 2019, they have conducted that study, 3-4 years. And in 3-4 years, we welcome this kind of study because in 4 years, where do we stand? If 49% of the farmers are less using the pesticides, or they have saved their input cost, it's a big achievement by itself. So if even in 10 years is what is their expectation for transformation, not necessarily. Some may take even beyond 10 years also. It's a movement that goes slow by self-experience without any external incentives or cash transfers. And if they do that, then it is a permanent transformation. There is no like, if you withdraw the project, the farmers are just disappeared. No, not like that. It's a permanent, it is a slow process, it takes time. So then, as you can see, we have increased the productivity, farm income, community health, and economic development. These are our goals. And in addition to that, also cooling the earth is one of the major things that is happening in the natural farming fields, with our observations that in a natural farming field, if it is 30 degrees centigrade in summer and it is 70 degrees centigrade in the conventional fields, that kind of huge difference of temperature and cooling effect can be seen because of the natural farming. Then you can see the natural convention. There are some farmers who are actually seed to seed, they follow the entire natural farming process. And even if you don't follow, there are lakhs of farmers, hundreds of thousands of farmers who in fact follow the PMDS, pre-monsoon dry sowing, with 10 to 15 crops mixed together, sown in the hot summer. And all those people who have done even 1 year to 4 years are reaping the huge advantage of their improving their soil health and productivity in their fields. And then you see that the training and support, we give a huge amount of human as well as capital investment is being done for farmers training, which is not recognized by these studies. So we have actually in 17 districts, farmers are being trained for a 4-year degree ecology course. And we have a separate training wing, which is a continuously helping for the upscaling of the natural farming and training farmers with the help of a large number of community resource persons placed in the villages. And as you can see, that almost we expect that by 2025, 1.3 million farmers may be part of this movement. And we have always emphasized bottom-up approach and then bottom-up approach, and it is a knowledge intensive program. Then the 377,000 hectares have been farmed, and we would like to double it by another 2 years. The farmers' income increased 56% per year, and cost savings are 15 to 18% per year. This is the data that what we have. And the GHG, greenhouse gases emission reduced by 30% depending on the crop. And water savings are up to 50%. Biodiversity improved 7 times, the earthworms increased, 55% avian bird population around the farming system is seen, 60% increase in the beneficial insects, and $1 invested by the government, it can be $6 to $8 return is the estimated benefit. The local marketing is the focus, livelihoods are the focus. We are actually in touch in the marketing. As the production increases, marketing strategies are also changing. We connected the large temples who consumes a lot of the paddy and chickpea and other crops, which we are already supplying to them after certification, which they are accepting it. We are also in touch with the huge supply chain markets like Reliance and Amul. We are also in touch and making them the supplies. The national expansion is also going on. 12 Indian states have approached us to expand this program in their particular states from the Andhra Pradesh. Then almost about 45 countries visited the natural farming fields in Andhra Pradesh, and they have all actually visited and interacted with the farmers. Women SHGs, self-help groups, are most crucial, important, and they are managing. Most of them are running very well, and they are learning and taking leadership positions, and the polycropping is being promoted by these SHGs now in a most aggressive way. Promotion of non-chemical pest management is going on. Regional and crop-specific package of practices for the cropping systems is available with us. And resilience to extreme events, we have recorded, video recorded, and scientific data recorded evidences that whenever there are floods or cyclones or droughts, natural farming fields are outstandingly withstanding that and making the advantages of the yields and incomes. So I will just close my deliberations by saying that still there are certainly certain gaps, and these kind of reviews will help us to look back and improve. Absolutely, they are necessary, and we are happy. And sometimes unfounded allegations or unfounded statements will go by themselves with the time when we are successful on field. The pesticide-free input supply chains we feel that there is still a gap we need to do. Certification is a major issue, natural farming certification. Already the policy support from the central government is there. Certification drafts are being submitted. We hope this year we will have a policy on the natural farming product certification. And market linkages is a gap which we would like to improve. And long-term monitoring and through scientific validation through remote sensing, we are trying. We have the research projects, and policy and governance gaps will be addressed, and integration of technology and data analytics also will be done. We are in the German project, we are actually establishing a huge data repository, which also includes videos and lessons repository, and large-scale urban and pre-urban adoption will be taken up, and integration with the schools and the nutritional programs. We have special health and nutritional programs running in more than 200 villages, and these are really giving good results and satisfaction. I stop here. I hope I have covered the critical insights, some positive points, and what we are doing, what is the status. Thank you very much. I stop here.
I think it was excellent, and of course this is not a court. It's not a court case, but your defense was very complete. I would like Oliver to react as a kind of respondent, but before this, I wondered. You said clearly, and I agree with you. There are some unfounded allegations. We hope that they will disappear with the time. But somehow, did you have the opportunity to interact with the researchers who wrote the papers?
Yeah, thank you, Francois. Actually, now in this month itself, we may start 5 collaborative research projects with the national institutes, Indian Council of Agricultural Research Institutes, and I am now actually speaking from an Institute of Maize Research. So we have established and approved these projects, and these projects will start from functioning within 1 or 2 months, that is much before the Kharif starts. Similarly, we have also developing the international data with the scientific evidences from University of Reading has 2 phases completed. 3rd phase will start, and then 17th and 18th of this March, the University of Reading staff is coming here to finalize their research plan to develop the evidence data. And we have also Potsdam Institute in Germany, to which we have also granted a project to develop a crop modeling, how the temperature, polycropping, etc., will help and bring the future secure for our survival and also make it profitable agriculture. And so we are aware that scientific evidence is required and it is being targeted, and we are moving ahead. Thank you, Francois, for this question.
Oliver, any reaction to what Varaprasad presented? As you are online.
Yes, Francois, thank you. Certainly, I completely agree with Dr. Varaprasad on a context where this is in transition. I think this reflection from these 2 papers exactly reflecting any kind of transformation process will subject to this kind of comments. I make that statement very carefully. And why I'm saying so, I take my personal experience. I have visited a couple of locations in Andhra Pradesh, in APCNF area. I stayed with the farmers for overnights, and I lived with them, and I actually gathered their insights over how this transition happening, how it is making changes in their life. I think certainly the farmers are seeing the benefits on farm and also at home, 2 levels. They have so many cases to reflect on that in terms of diversity or healthy food or changes in their local biodiversity, the habitat restoration. Different perceptions are there. The cases are there. And also I witnessed that the change in the agricultural system, for example, in the agricultural extension system, their mindset is also changing. They are very pro, and by heart they are actually saying the changes that they witness in their block areas, in the agroecological block areas, they have reflected. So that is very critical. Any transformation that to happen in a country like India, where it has gone through sort of over 30-40 years of heavy lifting for evergreen revolution, and making a transition is an uphill task. So primarily the extension agents, they are carrying this mission forward. That also I witnessed. I think that is a very important thing. Recently, MSSRF is also taken up some program in natural farming in places like in hilly region, of course, in Kolli Hills, in Tamil Nadu and other places, which is promoted by NABARD, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. It's the government of India, we all know. It is a National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development. They have taken this concept as a part of their program. I think way back in mid-90s, the tribal development program called as WADI project, that has again, supported by German government, and which was later on taken over by the NABARD. Now across tribal regions, the tribal development WADI project is now being implemented, supporting several thousands of tribal farmers to build their capacity. Similar way, now GFAiR is taken up by the NABARD. and NABARD is actually scaling it up, piloting. Now we are moving to scaling it up in different states in the country, which clearly indicates that there is a positivity. And also it is adopted by the government banking program. So that is a positive side. I always see that. And while I say so, certainly there are areas for strengthening, especially in the R&D area. Particularly, we look at the soil microbiome with Dr. Varaprasad and APCNF. We have started collaborating it. That's the area probably we need to have a deep dive insights on that to make more evidence-based recommendations. So that's the area definitely MSSRF will collaborate with them, particularly soil microbiome and its works. When the transformation happens, how it is impacting on soil and microbiome in the soil and so on. In different cropping system, how it works. Our team is closely working with them. Such exercise probably needed in different agroecologies. That's one area I would say. The second area I also, when I interacted with the farmers, probably something that is reflected in these papers also, two levels: input strengthening the system for input supply. That's one area. The other area, farmer also reflected that, okay, fine, now we are producing a lot, producing beyond what we want from the household. Surplus is there. How the surplus can be managed. So these are the two areas probably going forward in phase 2 or phase 3. Probably APCNF and allied partners, they will be concentrating on that as well. So when we do so, there are questions around that. What is for the agroecology? What is for the mainstream community? So this is the linkage any transformation process might want to address. So that really connects their farmers' rights and users' rights and consumer rights and the trade-off and also the benefit sharing, all that. So I think going forward, definitely we can all address together, looking at what is in the context of agroecology, where the primary producers are there. What can go, for heavy lifting for the agricultural extension agencies? Then how the market can interplay with this, or the whole argument of going forward. I think this is my reflection on these papers, and India is actually moving towards that to strengthen the capabilities from the pro-poor and pro-women and pro-nature alignment. MSSRF is also, motto is also towards that. And we wish to collaborate with APCNF and similar collaborative partners across the country in that same lines. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Oliver. Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentations. As the whole world is looking at India as an example, I just wanted to know, like, okay, India has experienced already the negative effects of the Green Revolution. In Africa, it's a completely different ball game, and the narrative is still very much for part of the funders that they should increase the use of agrochemicals. So there's two big differences, which poses a challenge for scaling across continents. But also what I'm very much interested, looking at soil fertility, soil health in particular, your program has had a lot of experience with training farmers to make their own bioresources. The Indian government is supporting the whole system through the bioresource centers. So you have professional entrepreneurs being set up, a whole network. Now, in dryland Africa, cattle can be limited. And women in particular, they have access to goats and sheep. So I wonder if your program, and Oliver was mentioning the research being done on the soil microbiome, if you have already done some research on other sources of inputs to produce the bio input, besides cows and buffaloes, maybe also with small ruminants. And I just want to know your experiences so far.
Yeah, can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a very important input that comes many times from the formal scientists. So that we completely agree and we understand. And as I already told in my initial remarks, we do not advocate only desi cow inputs are required. Not at all. Indigenous cow inputs are essential. Now we are not saying. We have done research with other animals, including small ruminants like sheep and goat. And also now we have a live experience of working with Jambia. Our farmers from Andhra Pradesh are now in Zambia. They are now in Zambia, and the first crop has come. The first crop, main crop yield has not yet come, but the polycropping, what has done, it already they received equivalent to the main crop of previous experiences. And then they don't have any indigenous cows there. So what I mean to say is that the local animals, and also we have another approach called Atavi Chaitanya Dravanam, which is actually the what we call virgin soils or forest soils are nearby. We have methodology to multiply those microbes and use them as a biostimulant. That's also a process, and a lot of other animals, indigenous animals, should be tried, and that's the approach that we are going. Not that we will export the indigenous cow inputs across the globe or across India. We definitely see all the resources available in and around the farming system is the one which needs to be targeted with improvement both in seed microbiome and soil microbiome to infuse the health. So one last point I would like to say, the now almost I can say 100-year-old theory is being dispelled now, that whatever nutrients that you extract from the soil and through the grains and straw, you have to give it back through fertilizers is a wrong theory. And we know that fertilizers use efficiency is 30%, sometimes less than that. And we are only contributing to the pollution by using more and more fertilizers. And the requirement of plants is much, much less than what we give at one time. And there is also a recent evidence from the Department of Biotechnology that the plant has a mechanism to take the nutrients from the soil by modifying its own system. And we are actually investing some resources into more understand this particular approach of phytoglobulins. And I'm sure that this restriction to inputs from the indigenous cow is no more a taboo with the APCNF. Thank you.
Actually, since I'm coming from India, and I am also very close to Andhra Pradesh. I'm based at Hyderabad. I think the few things which comes to my mind is one is India is so big, and what is happening in Andhra Pradesh, if you should not expect that, that will immediately be present in the rest of the whole country. Second is we have two systems really in place in India. So one is the formal agriculture research and extension system, and the other is these types of knowledge. APCNF, their own setup of extension, doing their own kind of research. These two systems really do not work very well. So efforts are being made to bring them together. So one of the challenges in India is about mainstreaming these experiences, the formal research and extension system, which is a major kind of a challenge, because most of the people, for example, that's a whole challenge. The public extension, they still consider formal research as the source of knowledge. They should be transferring or they should be educating farmers. Now, personally, many of the extension officers might, when they see the progress, might accept it. But formally, the whole problem is they are still bound by the package of practice recommendations offered by the state agriculture universities. So it will take another maybe 2 decades for many of these issues to be addressed. So we should not expect immediate kind of a changes. And then there are large areas which are still monocropped. So we should not expect the pesticide reduction to be immediately reflected, because pesticide consumption also goes up because when you have very major kind of a pest in monocropping kind of a situation, so people are forced to use it. There are also a few other points which I thought maybe this promotion of this kind of a agroecology also depends to a large extent on the availability of the labor wages. There are so many other factors. So in some places, even livestock itself is not available because people are not interested to go into livestock farming because the labor wages are so high. So there is no really source of maybe cow dung or any of those kind of an animal manure. So it doesn't work. It will work in a, it will not be a kind of a very straight process. It will take a lot of time, and we should have more patience, and we should allow these kind of experiments to find out their own paths. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Rashid.
Any question?
Yeah. You have one.
Yeah. No, thanks for the very nice presentation and the insights. I studied in India, so it's nice to to hear from India. But my question is rather what you mentioned, two areas where you said yourself there is more strengthening is welcomed. And one you said one is certification. You mentioned that you're in the process of strengthening the certification process. And you also said the market linkages. And of course, our consortium help us be part of, we focus very much on market linkages from the rural-urban continuum, right? So maybe my question is, since you have spoken of pest management, you've spoken about measure soil fertility, but more from the demand side, what are you planning to do in the future, or how? I mean, you mentioned the certification process, but maybe do you plan also to target consumers with explicit measures in rural areas, but also in more urban areas? Well, yeah, how do you plan to address the demand side in the future?
It's a very, very important and a critical remark. And as of now, in the scale where we are operating in terms of area and also in terms of number of farmers, so the pest complexes are also changing because of the climate change, and as well as when the fertilizer application and the pest complexes are also linked, as you are aware. So the first thing is we are actually trying to address the attitude of the farmers, which has been built over decades. The moment you see few insects, then start thinking of which chemical to use and go for advice which chemical to use. So we are trying to, the knowledge of the farmers on beneficial insects is also very good. And then we are trying to say that we have to live with the pests. It's not that the pests needs to be completely eliminated. They have a role in the agroecological cycle. So it's a long-drawn process. We don't have any specific approach, but right now, using the locally available resources, tolerating certain amount of damage, and keeping the ecological cycle safe is the target with which we are working.
Yeah, I meant more really the demand side in sense of processors, wholesalers, retailers, and consumers who are not running a farm, who are living, I guess most of them, of course, you have rural households as well who are not in agriculture, but of course there are a large percentage of houses in rural areas is in agriculture. But I mean, taking this, for instance, bigger settlements, smaller cities, and so on, do you have any initiatives to address them? So really more up the supply chain?
Yeah, we just at the budding stage in these activities, but let me tell you that the largest rich temple in India, probably one of the largest temples in the world also, has now taking the products from the aggregated products from the natural farming products, which are certified for pesticide residue free. We are not really targeting for fertilizer free, but pesticide residue free products, particularly the paddy, the chickpea, and few other products that they use at the temples in a large scale. They accepted, and it has become a system where through some mutually accepted certification process, we are able to market. And as I have already told you, we are holding dialogues with the big super markets like the Reliance, the big basket, and Amul. As now, actually, we are working with the Amul, and this, as the production and productivity increases, maybe these markets are extremely important. We are building from now, but we are still at the budding stage. That's the only thing that I can tell you.
Okay. Now we have a question from Professor Patrick van Damme, who represents the European Forum of Agricultural Research for Development, APAARI. Patrick?
Thank you, Francois, and saying hello to Oliver, more specifically. Because 2 years ago, I was involved in evaluating a project headed by him on minor millets, a project that had been operational for almost 20 years. So not everything is in transition. There have already been some experiences. So I was just referring to the evaluation report that I have here with me. And indeed, the first basic remark was on value chains, and also on the soft side of those chains, meaning not the research or implementing research results, be it on soil or pesticides, but also strengthening the capacity of the people in the rural areas to discuss, communicate with the market. And so I think that in agroecology, if you read very well the definitions, there is this socio-political element that is very important. And I think that on top of what you are presenting and advocating for, you should also take those soft sides into consideration. So it's more of a remark than a question. Thank you.
Another question from Christian.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the presentation. So I'm Christian Binik here, representing the Pan-African Farmers Organization. So from what I understand, we have now, we've been talking about agri-food systems transformation for a few years, following the UN Food Systems Summit. And you're also, you've had enough experience to have offered a proof of concept of a whole systems or the whole ecosystem of mechanisms that need to be in place to effect transition at the local level and eventually transformation at a scale level. So you mentioned also that 12 other states in India are looking at the experience, learning from your experience, and other countries. So would you say that by now, faced with all these queries from different organizations, can we all together start thinking about a kind of an innovation ecosystems approach where we say that to be able to have this change, you need to have a certain number of kind of multi-pronged efforts happening simultaneously to be able to achieve the change. Because we're saying that, and especially when you talk to the planners from other countries, they need to understand that it's not something they will have to do in a linear manner. They'll have to come up with an approach that is multi-pronged simultaneously because they're all complementary. So it's really a systems approach to the change. Now, having said that, and if you agree with that, how can we move forward? You talked about people working with you on modeling and so on. Can we try to develop these kinds of models of what could happen in different situations? Because we want to learn from your experience and not repeat or create mistakes by experimenting anew. We need to be agile in terms of the approach, but still we want to learn from the experience of others so we don't repeat mistakes. So what would be your comment on this? It's a massive experience you have, and I'm looking at how does the African continent now, which is probably being told that with new funding from European Union that we need to focus on agroecological approaches. And I would interpret agroecological approaches as being this multi-pronged approach. but how do we go about doing it? And how do we go about reporting on what we've done with the funding that we've got to be able to achieve those objectives? Thank you.
Pancha, should I respond?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a vast, huge question. If you manage to, this is not a court case. This time it's.
In the Andhra Pradesh program, our approach is, please don't call it as a APCNF in Zambia. Call it as Zambia natural farming, which means that we take the traditional knowledge and local resources into consideration while we implement, and necessary modification will be brought in the system. So what we believe is not that the theory of teaching, but the theory of change is that the practicing farmers from Andhra Pradesh will stay for a season long in the place where we would like to promote natural farming, along with the farmer scientist group, so that proper evidence is built right from the beginning. And the African farmers will come to see what is happening in Andhra Pradesh and stay season long, and then take back and modify as per local conditions. So neither the cow is imposed nor any practice. It should be definitely the knowledge intensive from local communities, which we clearly understand from our own experience. That's the local experience which counts for nature positive solutions. I think the Zambian experience is giving a lot of experience, and there are many other countries which are approaching. We would like not to jump at every level. We will go slow, and we will value the community's experience and knowledge locally, and to convert that into the nature positive solutions for the local problems. I think this is the approach, I think, which will work, mutually respecting each other's knowledge and skills. Thank you.
I would like to also to give Bridget the opportunity to jump in if she is interested, if she can. But I understand it's not only Zambia. You had also a random delegation who came to Andhra Pradesh, and I have seen it is very well documented how they benefited from this exchange. You also had your team which went to Zambia, so it has been a very intensive type of exchange. We have still another 5 minutes. Bridget, would you like to come in with a question?
Actually, nothing more to add, but if Dr. Oliver or someone else would like to comment on the specific question from the African context, they can respond. I think I have just put my point already.
Yes. Oliver, you would like to react to the African context?
Maybe a couple of things broadly we have spoken. One aspect is that what I have witnessed here in APCNF area, the co-development process has actually begun. That is more important, in my opinion. The co-development is very, very critical. Otherwise, the mainstreaming may not happen. So the many contexts, I see that the farmer themselves who has been considered as a APCNF farmer or natural farming farmer, and the extension official, they work together. Let it be a choice of species, kind of input, use of cattle, or kind of a processes, the scientific skills that they have to build in terms of decoctions, different kinds of versions of decoction used for pest control or fertilizing, all that, it is being co-developed. That is one aspect probably need to develop in the African context as well. And for that, in order to achieve that, what are the resources? The resource availability mapping is very critical, unless otherwise, because it is not organic farming where largely depending on animal dung. This natural farming, we talk about most cases, natural resource utilization. In that context, there could be later on, when we move up in the value chain, when we are talking about scaling up, when we are talking about natural resources, resource extraction is a critical area. They need to extract from the wild or from the commons or from the land or from the bunds. Where is the resources going to come from? When we are talking about inputs. So that is another critical area, when we really talk about scaling up. It is only for the community at small scale or only for the family, it is okay. But if it is going to be a mainstream in large scale, since this concept is depending on natural resource base, that is most critical. Definitely, we need to really look at that aspect as well, in my opinion. The second
resource availability.
Yeah, that is so important. Yeah, because then what is the difference between organic farming and related certification and mainstreaming in value chain? Here we are talking about natural farming based on local natural resources, not just animal dung. So what is the negative impact, likely negative impact if we go scaling up? That is the thing probably African counterpart also need to really look at it. Where is this bio input, natural input is going to come from? What are the resources? How the resource recycling would happen or revitalization that would happen? That is also be very strategic. Probably right from the day one, we need to really look at it. The second aspect, well spoken here, the other gentleman wanting to know about the value chain development and also the actors involved. I think unless otherwise, scaling will be there, surplus production will be there, surplus production management is going to be critical on the other side. So these are the two aspects, one at the back end and the front end, we need to really look at it. Certification is fine, fine-tuning certification from organic farming to natural farming. There are certain critical elements we need to really look at it. What is the difference and how it is going to be a new label for the farmers? What is the critical advantage? In case of organic farming, we have global certification that is also tested in different parts of the country. So the new labeling, what we are talking about in terms of natural farming labeling, in what way it is going to be different and how this will provide them edge for the local community. That is also very critical. Probably from the African side, they need to look at these three dimensions, in my opinion. Thank you.
We have now a question from Marcos and then from Bridget, and I will come up with a last question, which will be about your connection with the private finance, the venture capital from the United States. This is the latest development. But let me give the floor first to Marcos.
Yeah, thank you very much for the discussion. Yeah, I took some notes, and I believe that there is no really way to start to have sustainable farming systems if the land tenure is not something to be solved. Farmers will not really easily engage in transforming their cropping system if they cannot really keep it in time. A lot of good practices need time. Imagine planting trees. Why would you plant trees if you don't know if you're going to be there the next year? The seed market is a fundamental part of the whole transition too. And transition is a key aspect. We cannot expect farmers to change the system from one day to another. And for that, they're going to need to have a proper advisory service. And we are having problems with advisory service everywhere because pretty frequently, many of the advisors, like my colleagues, agronomists, I can tell you, they need to sell things in order to get a salary. So it is a contradiction per se. How do we solve this situation? Yeah, and then which kind of advisory service do we need? And I also understand that when we work with agroecology, we need to consider unique strategies or trajectories. I really don't like to use the term transfer. I believe that this term is really very bad, neo-colonialistic, to be honest. And I prefer much more the term kind of exchange of knowledge. I believe is much more important. It's important also that we make a clear difference between organic and agroecological. I think they are different. And we need to talk about those things. Yeah, and then my question to Dr. Varaprasad, have you also looked for experiences of agroecology in other parts of the world? Because I know that Brazil has very interesting examples of transition. And also they have been able to establish laws to support agroecology. While it's not perfect, it's a very interesting step, I believe, into the right direction. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think Brazil experience is very valuable. And as you know that even though we are at national level, we are talking about a natural farming policy. This year budget, they have allocated resources for national mission on natural farming. And still, it's not completely, I can say, faultless. But we would like to definitely take experiences from the other countries as well. Thank you for that point on the Brazilian context.
Bridget?
You are muted.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah.
A question or yeah, sort of a combination of a question and a comment, and to some extent addressed by the response about the agroecology policies coming into place. So I'm in South Africa, and I was recently at a workshop where some farmers were, strongly agroecological farmers were very frustrated because the only government programs that we have that provide access to inputs provide access to a very limited range of very conventional products through very conventional suppliers. And so the policy isn't supporting them to be able to buy inputs or get inputs for free. And then my other way of asking the question is, well, how are you managing in India, where you talked about this, I think you talked about this package of practices approach. I assume that government's promoting a package of practices and providing inputs related to those practices. And my question is, are farmers turning them down completely? Are they willing to not take them because they don't support them? Or are they doing some farming like this and some farming like that? I'm just interested to know how people really turn down things that are offered for free, unless their behavior is so changed that they can't bring themselves to buy those or to make use of those products. So if I could have some feedback on that, please.
Yeah, very interesting question. Actually, the government is so far not giving any free inputs for bioresource inputs free to anybody so far. But while government has legs in both, they sell chemical fertilizers and pesticides also and also they promote natural farming. Right now, the real experience is that we do not want that suddenly overnight changes of a policy are sometimes very dangerous. Like as you can see in case of Sri Lanka, what has happened that they have to revert their decisions and then they have to get back to fertilizers again. Totally through policy, you cannot manage things. So it's actually a slow and convincing by himself, by experimenting in his own area, using in part of it fertilizers, part of it without any chemicals, and he feels that it is good and there is no cash incentive for him for change. You change it because it works for you. That kind of thing. There are a large number of very successful cases in Andhra Pradesh where after 4 years of PMDS, that is without that pre-monsoon dry sowing of 15 crops in the summer, they say after 4 years of that practice, 5th year probably you don't need even bio inputs. So that's some of the farmers are experiencing that, and I have visited those fields where just polycropping and timely management and saving the water is working for them. So bioresource center is not a permanent feature, and bioresource centers are not really meant for small and marginal farmers who have got half acre. Well, it's not for them. They can make themselves. And such land holdings are many. Like 80% in India land holding is less than 2 hectares. And half acre, if you see, it is about 60%. So their knowledge to make bio inputs by themselves is a real option rather than buying from somewhere. But there are quite a good examples where those people who have 10 acres or more, they are actually buying the either actually putting some machines for preparing the bio inputs, or they're buying from a bioresource center and using it. So we do not, by policy, we do not restrict that no fertilizer. If you use fertilizer, we'll fine you. No such thing. These will be a slow change. And then we also don't want to commercialize bio inputs, because we also believe after 5 or 6 years of natural farming, probably you don't need even the biostimulants, because microbiome developed enough. And I think these are some of my points to your question. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I want to release you both, Oliver and Varaprasad. Very grateful. Only one question remains, which is about the private finance. So what are the dangers of trying to attract private finance, like from the United States, which was recently published?
It's a very good question, sensitive question. But we are looking that agreement from the long-term angle of a stage when we produce more than enough, and we are in a stage where we have to connect to the producer companies of the US, where if we meet their standards, probably that will be helpful. But for the time being, we welcome any philanthropist kind of investment for the farmers, because we are not taking all the money from the government, and our estimated transformation per farmer per decade is very high. So unless there is a financial resource, really we cannot make a progress. So as long as we will be careful, I understand the signal that you are giving, we'll be very careful, but we also should be futuristic for global market linkages, which is also very important. Thank you for that question.
And you think this can be multiplied for other contexts, because it's quite innovative, trying to attract private finance? Is it replicable, you think, for other areas, continents?
Why not? As long as you are clear about your policy and purpose, then and we don't deviate or negotiate our ethical principles, I think yes, why not? For any region, it should be.
Excellent. And
that's my personal opinion. Yeah.
A very last question.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation. At the beginning, you mentioned a premium to incentivize farmer. Could you? I think it's linked with private finance and how to fund and to finance transition at large scale level. What is the structure of this incentive, this farmer incentive? Is it a payment for environmental services, purely public funding, or is it blended with value chain actor, so public and private funding? And we know that we need long-term funding. It's crucial. So maybe if you can explain the strategy to ensure this financial sustainability. Are you exploring mechanism like carbon credit, biodiversity credit, or value chain premium? I think it's already the case for value chain premium with certification and connection with the demand. And yes, thank you. So it's 2 questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Out of the 3 credits, I value more value chains rather than the carbon credits. Carbon credits is a very volatile market. And then particularly at global level, I do not know, the carbon sequestration is extremely important, no doubt about that. But depending for financing the farmers on that may not be, in my personal opinion, it may not be a great option. Though it can be explored initially, but the market will change with time. And biodiversity as well as the value chains are extremely important. They will give better results, in my opinion. And then with reference to the incentives, what you are talking, we are absolutely clear. In India, there are a number of programs where direct benefit transfer is done. That means if you have a farm and then for your cost of cultivation below a level of holding, they directly transfer the money to you for compensate the less income from the farmer or their capital, such things. Most of the state governments and even central government, the federal government is also doing this. But in our project, there is absolutely zero cash incentive. That means if you are transforming to natural farming, we will not give you anything for that. We will facilitate systems. If value chain, if a system is to be established in your region, we will be happy to establish that. If bioresource center is required, we will try to help and establish that. And if you need product marketing, what you are producing, and in certain areas, we will be happy to assist and connect. But there is no cash incentive for transformation. That is a very important point, because I have personally seen several projects where you give cash incentive for transformation, and when the project goes, transformation also disappears. So that's why we took a tough stand, even though it slows the process, that no cash incentive for transformation. And all the money that finance, without finance, there will be no development in any sector, including the natural farming. So we need finance, but to create systems rather than individual benefit transfers. I think I have addressed the two concerns what you have made.
Excellent. We are looking forward to your collaboration with Reading University. I think this will be very valid to have scientific data to contradict some, as you said, some allegations. So with this, the tribunal has acquitted you of all sins. You are released.
Thank you. On 17th and 18th, we are, I think the University of Reading scientists are coming to Hyderabad. I'll be part of that. Thank you. We look forward for your collaboration.
And we hope we have some news from the German government that indeed we will be having this opportunity to come to Andhra Pradesh and then to work out a food proposal for the German Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry to be so long. I think it was very intensive, and just congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Francois, for this opportunity. And all others.
Some break, I guess, because our brains are exploding somehow.